Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is David Glassner. I'm the superintendent of the Shaker Heights City School District, and we are thrilled that you are here to join us for a conversation this evening about generative AI and how it is informing and transforming the work that we do with our students and in our classrooms. Just a couple of notes before we get started. As you can see from the video camera in the back here, this session is being recorded, and the reason for that is because we want to be able to share our discussion and what we learn about and talk about with other community members. Also, there are many other superintendent series coming up. This is the first one, so thank you very much for being here. Just a note, and I'll put a plug in at the end as well. The next superintendent series will be on February 18th. We'll be hearing from the Office of Inclusive Excellence and Engagement. We'll also have a session on Wednesday, March 11th, where we'll be talking about our International Baccalaureate program. And lastly, on Tuesday, April 21st, we'll be exploring detracking and learning about detracking. So keep those in mind. Again, I'll try to put a plug in at the end as well. We are very privileged this evening to hear from Dr. Lauren Priestley. Dr. Priestley helps us plan for and support technology integration into our classrooms. And so she has done a lot of work around thinking around AI and generative AI and how that is implemented in our classrooms and in our school district. I know some of you already, and I know some of you bring experience and expertise either in the classroom or in technology to this conversation, so we're definitely looking forward to your thoughts and ideas. One last thing before I turn over the microphone to Dr. Priestley. There are lots of seats around tables here, and we will be having some small group conversations. So if you don't mind sitting in the back, if you could come up and sit at a table, that would be helpful because in the next few minutes, you'll have a chance to talk with table partners. I get that right?
Yes.
All right. No further ado. Thank you very much for being here. Our program for this evening will include some information from Dr. Priestley. There will be opportunities to ask questions and provide comments also over the course of the evening. So thank you very much, Dr. Priestley.
Thank you, Dr. Glassner. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Like Dr. Glassner said, I have the most amazing pleasure of working with teachers all day long and supporting them with the technology that they use with their students in the classroom. So I do a lot of coaching, co-teaching, co-planning, things like that with our teachers, and a lot of it has been spent on AI lately. So I'm excited to share with you what we've been up to. All right, so today, this is a little peek at what we're going to be discussing and looking at. We're going to start with a quick provocation, which is why we need to be near people so that we can have some productive discussions. We're going to be looking at our district's journey over the last 3 years. We really started our AI journey in 2023, and we've made a lot of work up until now, so you'll get to see that. We're going to look at our policy and guidelines that we've created. We're going to be looking at a lot of the different safeguards that we have in place for our students and our teachers. We'll take a look at some classroom examples. I hope to show a video if we have some time. We'd also like to take this opportunity to get feedback from our community and our family members as well. So that'll be towards the end. And then finally, we'll end with next steps, where we're going from here, and then hopefully have some time to answer questions. I hope you brought questions, and I also hope that some of those will be answered throughout the presentation today. All right, take a look. These are some of the most recent headlines that we've seen related to AI in education. How many of us are thinking some of the same things? And that's okay, because we've definitely seen it before with other technologies that we've had in the past. Something similar came with the calculator, the internet, Wikipedia. Similar to AI, with the release of calculators, math didn't stop. We just think of it a different way. Same with the internet. It didn't stop us from researching. It just gives us time to spend on other higher level critical thinking tasks. Same with Wikipedia. Our research didn't stop. So with AI, we're looking at how we can use it to increase our students' higher level thinking so that they can spend time on tasks that are more meaningful, almost thinking about AI doing the grunt work for us. So, the first part that we would like you to join together and discuss, all of you have note cards on the table, so you may need to get up and move around. We'd like you to come up with your own headline of what your thoughts and feelings are of AI initially, and write a response on the note card. Once your table group all has a response to share, go ahead, share those, and then pick one that you want to share out to the whole group. So we'll give you a few minutes to do that. Go ahead and grab a note card, grab a table, and write your headline. All right, again, once your table is ready, go ahead and share, and then pick one that you'd like to share out to the whole group. All right, if you would take about 30 seconds to decide who at your table would like to share one of your headlines out. And we're just going to be sharing a headline.
Yeah, I took it literally. And they have my article.
With the most in there, I'll never read the article. Just the headline.
Yeah.
Right? Just the headline. When you're ready, LP, I'll.
Perfect.
Thank you. We took a literal approach to it. We have AI saving time, or is it spending our time?
Thank you. Okay, next group. Who would like to share? Excellent.
So the question was, are we taking away too much friction from the learning process?
And we had a latecomer, so we didn't quite to the share part.
Mine is this very close to it. Just in general, worried about if the kids not work hard. They just rely on those easy technology.
Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, and our last table, our volunteer. Excellent.
This is very simple. Who's in charge of our future?
Thank you. Very provocative headlines. Back to you, Dr. Kriesel.
Great. And I think a lot of us are probably asking a lot of similar questions and have very similar concerns as well. Just by a show of hands, how many of us are using AI right now at home for different tasks? A lot of us. What about work? Again, sure. We'll say generative AI, just for tonight's discussion. So still the same. All right. So we've heard your perspectives. This is what a lot of our students had to say. We actually met with middle school and high school students, and they shared some of their perspectives on what they think school leaders need to know about AI. And we pulled these ones specifically because these were a lot of the trends within the data that we saw. And I want to say overwhelmingly, this one right here, teach us how to effectively use AI, was what our students want, which aligns very much with current data. The College Board just had a recent study in 2025 with a pretty large data set of high school students specifically. We have 84% of high school students already using AI. So think, if they're already using it, what are we doing to help make sure that they're using it effectively and responsibly? Because they're going to use it whether we teach them how to or not in school. If we're not familiar with what generative AI is, this is a pretty basic definition. So it's a tool that creates any kind of new content. That can be a text, a piece of text, image, code, in response to a prompt that we are entering. So think of it as a powerful thought partner and an accelerator, not just a search engine. To break it down a little bit more, it does use a large set of background information to create responses to the user's inquiry. We must remember AI does not think or feel. That is why we always must make sure that our human agency piece is part of the process. And that's what we built a lot of our policy and guidelines on here in Shaker. We need to remember it's only generating responses based on patterns. So some examples, if you are using things like ChatGPT, Siri, Alexa, Gemini, YouTube, or Netflix recommendations, Grammarly, Google Maps, again, odds are you're already using it in some way, even if you think you're not. How does AI promote inclusive excellence for every student in Shaker? So this is where we're getting into some of the ways that we are using it in our district. We're doing things like providing real-time coaching and feedback. This is something that would not be possible without the use of AI. You can have 20+ students in a classroom receiving personalized feedback based on a rubric that a teacher has created or input that a teacher has put into a customized chatbot to make sure that students are all getting feedback real time. This is something that would take hours, days, sometimes over a week for a teacher to do. Next, translating and text leveling. AI is used to remove barriers for our students. We do have students that need translation services. We do have a lot of instances where a text needs to be leveled in order for a student to access the content and be able to participate in education. And then finally, using it to break down concepts, whether that be a brainstorming partner, a scaffolder, helping to outline ideas, create checklists for students, again, so that they can complete whatever task that they're working on. Now, we're not ignoring the fact that sometimes students, especially outside of school with the resources that they have access to, will use AI to do the work for them. That is not something that we are encouraging here in Shaker. We are going off of the idea that it acts as a catalyst for student thought, taking away some of those frustrations that often stall the learning process. So again, we're removing those barriers so that our students can access their education. Now you'll see this is definitely a trending shift right now, and both Stanford and Harvard have done a lot of studies recently. They have projects that they're working on, literature, explaining how they're carrying this out right now as we speak, but there is a major shift right now in education. We are moving more from just the final product, whether it be an essay or a student project, to the process. So we are needing to look more at the research process that the students are following, their critical thinking pattern, how they used AI, their prompting with AI to assist them in the process, which is going to transform how we assess student understanding and mastery. So that's definitely something that you'll see later on too, as a next step of ours for the district. That's going to be something that we continue to work on. All right, we're going to share a little bit of our district timeline. We definitely took a phased approach because we didn't want to dive into the pool too quickly. Like I said, this has been a multi-year process of how we got to where we are today and are continuing to move forward. In 2023 and 2024, our district started to explore the use of AI in education through general professional learning for both our teachers and our administrators. At this point, I won't even say most, I'll say all AI applications were blocked for students at this point because we did not know, and neither did anyone else know about the privacy implications, data sharing, things like that. So most of everything was blocked. In 2024, 2025, there were a lot of different pieces that came into play. We as a district created a board policy, and then we also created staff and student guidelines. These guidelines, we actually had a team of a lot of different stakeholders from the learning and teaching department, the technology department. We had teachers across K-12 that helped craft these staff and student guidelines. And we continue to have a group that will continue reviewing these guidelines that we've created to make sure that we're keeping up with AI and how it's changing, adjusting as we need to go. Also, the release of SB 29. This state bill, if you don't know what it is, this impacted schools greatly, and it's a good thing because this bill is ensuring that any tool that we use meets strict Ohio data privacy standards so that student data isn't fed into public AI models. So every single application, software program, website that students and teachers are signing into needs to be approved by our state registry. So I will tell you, we did cut some of the programs that we were using. Not only does that help us on a privacy piece, but also the financial piece as well. But this is a good thing because it continues to push us to look at student data privacy and ensure that we're keeping our students safe. And then, of course, we continued professional learning for our staff and administrators. And then 2025, 2026, we started intentional instruction with students. This is something that we're currently working on, is keeping the consistency across classrooms as we go. We have a lot of teachers. We have a lot of people with different opinions, and that's going to be a continuance of trying to get everybody on the same page and make sure all of our students are having equitable experiences across the classrooms. We continue to make AI application purchases and have increased allowance for student access. So this year, we did purchase 2 AI programs that our students do have access to. Obviously, both of those programs are approved under State Bill 29. Neither of them use public AI models. Our data stays within our district's data center. And then, of course, we have continued professional learning. If you are interested in seeing what software applications are approved for use, anyone has access to them. It's a pretty lengthy list, and it took a lot of work to make sure that all of these were approved and vetted. So you can go to shaker.org, and if you head to the district technology webpage, you have to scroll down pretty far to access it, but it'll be the links on the right side, and you can access the entire list of software that our teachers and students have access to within the district. All right, I did mention last year we did release the board policy and student guidelines. So what's the difference between the two? The board policy, it's pretty short because it's the minimum requirements. So these are going to be the basic musts and must-nots. So how we approve apps, how student data is secured, what are acceptable uses. The guidelines are really what goes into, where we go into addressing our core principles that we believe in as a district, best practices, safety and ethics, and then really hitting on transparency with AI use in learning and teaching. And then speaking of those 4 core principles, these were developed based off of a few different things. The Department of Education did release an AI toolkit a few years ago. So we use that to inform our core principles within our guidelines. And we also used the IB. So you'll see a lot of IB-friendly language within our guidelines. If you're interested, the IB does have their own philosophy on AI use in education. They are supporters of it because they believe that it can have the ability to push students to think more critically and reach a higher potential. Our four core principles, like I said before, human agency is the biggest one. So we want to make sure that AI is a tool that's being used to amplify our human capabilities, not replace that relationship between the teacher and the student in the classroom. Equity, making sure we're providing every student with access and opportunities, bridging, not creating a digital divide. If you've heard that term before, digital divide used to mean students who could use or who had access to a device and those who did not. So that's where a lot of the one-to-one and devices being taken home came into play. The new digital divide is going to be students that know how to collaborate effectively with AI and those who do not. So we want to make sure we're not contributing to that big divide. Safety, ethics, and effectiveness. So this is going to govern what tools are approved, how they're used, ensuring responsible implementation for both teachers and students, and then finally, transparency. We are pushing this one hard, making sure that it's an ethical requirement for students to be open about how they are using AI in their outlining, in their drafting, in their checking work, and how they get feedback. We want to make sure that that's clear, teaching students how to cite AI, just like they would any other source that they're using. All right, I'm going to share just a couple of classroom examples. We have a lot, and it's hard to pick just two of them. I'll start with the one over on the right. This is an example. I know it's hard to see, but I'll tell you what it is. This is an example of a middle school student, 6th grade, in an INS class. They were learning about Mesopotamia. So what the teacher did, she took a pretty lengthy article. She wanted to make it a little bit more engaging for students. So she used Brisk, which was one of our applications that we purchased this year. It's called Brisk Teaching. She used Brisk to take that article and turn it into a podcast. So it's becoming a little bit more engaging. You have two characters that are talking about the topic of Mesopotamia. The students listen to it. They also have access to the transcript. And then she went a step further, and over on the right side of the screen, the students able to talk with a chatbot about the podcast that they just listened to. And when I say chatbot, it's not something that's open like ChatGPT. It's very controlled. The teacher builds it on their end, so they put in all of the requirements, what they want the chatbot to talk about with the students, what the barriers are. And then since it is an educational tool, it will flag anything. It flags the most minor things so that the teacher gets that notification right away. And the chatbot will stay on topic. So if a student tries to get off topic and asks something inappropriate, it is not going to engage with it, and it'll just keep redirecting the student. And then the teacher also has access to the entire conversation that the student is having with the chatbot. So that's one example of what's being used at the middle school. And then,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Just at the very beginning, so they use Brisk on this Brisk tool on what? What was the original text?
The original text, it was a pretty lengthy article on ancient Mesopotamia, and the teacher uploaded that article and had Brisk turn it into a podcast for the students.
6th grade level anyway?
No, it was a higher level text, but wanted the content from it.
It was a lesson on Mesopotamia?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
missed the opening. I didn't
Yeah,
understand how
yeah. It was a individuals and societies class that this was used in. Yeah. All right, so that's one example. Sure.
Can you speak to like why the chatbot is better for a student to like engage with in discussing the text than it would be with like a small group of other students?
Sure. And I'm not saying that this replaces all of those like classroom discussions. This is not something that's used on a daily basis. I do want to say that. This is meant as it's used once in a while to create different types of activities, but I will say that the chatbot can talk to the student, gauge their interests, allow them to ask the questions that they have about the material, what they're interested in, and it can also be used to push their thinking. So the teacher can input certain learning goals, and that chatbot pushes the student, and again, the whole thing's personalized. It's really hard to do sometimes with like a typical class discussion. So those are some of the ways that it can really be more personalized for each individual student.
So if you input learning goals
Mm-hmm.
and the chatbot pushes the student towards those learning goals, what is the student demonstrating in terms of the value of the lesson?
So the chatbot can start by asking the student questions about the podcast so that they're engaging in a discussion and talking about what they took away from it, what their thoughts are, their opinions, their perspectives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And the next one, I actually have a video, so some of this might make a little bit more sense. And I would also say, if you have a student that you know is using it, I would encourage you to also reach out to the classroom teacher. They'd be happy to also explain exactly how they're using it as well.
What grade does that start at?
The youngest that a chatbot has been used is 3rd grade. Yeah.
Have we done the research that that's a good age? That seems very low.
So, and I'll give you the example that we're using for 3rd grade. It's for OST writing prep. So it's allowing students to write on a topic and get real-time feedback, and then it allows them to rewrite their response based on the feedback and be scored again. So that, and the students find it really engaging. They're liking it. So that's the 3rd grade example. That's the only 3rd grade example that I know of how it's being used. I would say that we're definitely pushing our teachers to do learning engagements that are developmentally appropriate, and that's something we believe is developmentally appropriate for a 3rd grader, because they do have to type a response on their 3rd grade OST test. All right, this next one is a 4th grade example. This teacher had students working on debate writing. So she was able to build a few different chatbots that had different purposes. One was to help brainstorm ideas if they were stuck and couldn't think of an idea. And again, none of these chatbots are giving answers. They are all used to push students to think. A lot of times our students do get stuck. So these chatbots will use things like questioning or examples to help get the students where they need to get. So what you'll see in this video, the students are going to be getting feedback on their debate topics. So it'll walk them through, what's your topic? What ideas do you have to support your argument for the side that you've chosen for your debate? It'll help them identify credible resources that they might be able to use to get evidence from. So I'll go ahead and play this one. It's a 4-minute video, and you're going to see how the teacher builds it on their end. It's me walking through how a teacher builds it. This 4th grade teacher has created an opinion writing support room for her students. So what this is a room that students can go into and access different AI tools to support them in writing their debate arguments. So what this teacher has done, she set up 3 custom tools, a debate writing chatbot where students can get support with writing about their debate topic and arguments, writing feedback where students are able to upload their writing and get different types of feedback and suggestions and examples and reasons why they're getting feedback on specific parts, and then a research assistant, which is going to help students find reliable, student-friendly resources to pull information from for their debate topics. So I'll show you real quick how one of these works, and again, it's completely managed by the teacher. The teacher chooses which tools the students have access to, when they have access to them, and the teacher can also see the interaction between the AI chatbot and the student. So it's very safe and well managed. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this debate writing chatbot. On the left-hand side, you'll see how the teacher set up this custom chatbot. So they titled it Debate Writing Chatbot. They chose it as a 4th grade level chatbot. And here's their instructions. They said you are to support 4th grade students with debate writing. They've chosen topics and brainstormed reasons to support their stance, but need help developing a detailed argument. Do not give them direct answers. Rather, act as a guide and support by asking questions, providing suggestions, identifying relevant resources, etc. Your language should be at the student's level. Do not ask too many questions at once to avoid overwhelming them. Be aware of the diverse student reading and writing levels. If I wanted to include some specific knowledge, I could. I've also included in the additional fields the specific learning objectives. So I've taken 4th grade writing standards on opinion pieces and I've entered those right here. I could also choose a read aloud voice for students. There's a few different options that I could choose from. But let's start the preview so that you can see what the student would be seeing once they click on the debate writing chatbot. So I'll start the preview. You can see that the chatbot is generating an opening response to the student. They're explaining what they're here to do. And it specifically says, I'm not going to give you answers directly, but I'll guide you through making your writing the best it can be. What topic did you choose for your debate? I'm excited to help you build a convincing argument. So I might say AI should be allowed to be used on assignments in school. That'll be my debate topic. Okay, and you'll see the chatbot is generating their response, affirming the topic, it's a great topic, and then they're asking a question. What are some of the main reasons you came up with to support your position? I'd love to hear what you've already brainstormed. So the student would continue chatting with this chatbot about their topic. And again, this is all personalized to the student and what they're addressing. So that's just an example of how teachers use AI with students to help support them in their learning. And again, the teacher does have access to the entire conversation, so they can go ahead and review that to identify where the student might be struggling so that they can step in and continue supporting students that need further support beyond the chatbot. Yeah.
Maybe this is very micromanaged, but like in that response, that seemed like some of the kids I know, that seems like a lot of words for them to read next. Is it tailored then to the kids, like each level of the kid?
So you can actually, they can create, can this be used with students that are having a difficult time digesting what the chatbot said? Can it break it down further? Can it adjust maybe the language level that it's using? So if you remember, I chose a 4th grade level. We have some teachers that create multiple chatbots at different grade levels. So they might create a 2nd grade one, which means the chatbot's going to use language and sentence structure and things like that at a 2nd grade level so that they, again, can access the content that they need to. And that's the similar idea to using leveling features with AI. A teacher can take any text and re-level it down to or up to a grade level that they believe a student is able to access. That's a good question. But if you saw, also when building that chatbot, really it's all about the prompt. So that's part of what a lot of our professional learning revolves around. The product that you get of the quality of the chatbot is only going to be as good as the teacher built it. So really focusing on the prompting skills of how we can get a chatbot to do what we want it to do. That's a big piece of our professional learning. Yes?
Do you have the other side of that for the student on how to properly write a prompt? Because it's the same issue for students.
Mm-hmm.
I know adults who can't write a good AI prompt. So how are you preparing 3rd grade? I mean, I don't have a 3rd grader, I have a kindergartner.
Mm-hmm.
The thought of her writing a well-stated prompt to get her to the solution that she's looking for, it's unfathomable for me with a kindergartner. So how are you preparing 3rd graders? I don't know a 3rd grader, so I'm assuming they are much more advanced than a kindergartner, but.
Good question. So how are we preparing students to be prompt masters? I would say K-1-2, not totally developmentally appropriate right now. We're using more like, what is AI? Lessons like that. We don't have them in these applications talking with the chatbots. We also need to keep typing skills in mind too. We don't teach our students to type formally until 2nd grade. So we don't want that to also be a barrier to their learning. But for middle school, high school level, that is definitely part of the professional learning plan, is to include how we get students to be prompt masters, because that also relates to this environmental impact. If students can be as effective as possible with writing a prompt and getting the first time what they wanted, rather than having to do this over and over and over, wasting water, wasting energy because they don't know how to write a prompt, that's part of the professional learning of what we're getting our students to be proficient at.
Are you building in test scenarios to force them to go and verify the information and use that human element to verify that actually the output is accurate? Like, are there test scenarios that require them to actually think beyond what they're just getting and believe it?
For the teacher or the student or both?
I would actually hope you have it for both, but I was specifically thinking students, because if it comes out of ChatGPT, I feel like my interns are inclined to believe it, and I have to push them to go out and independently verify it. You said earlier that they can cite AI. That is I'm an attorney. That is troubling to me for many reasons. But I would urge you not to allow students to cite AI and force them to go and find the primary or secondary source from where that information came from, because I think we've all read that headline. Sorry, that's not a question. My question to you is, are you prompting them, teachers and students, to verify?
I will say so here's an example of part of that we're doing. We are running a course right now where teachers can get credit through Ashland University on AI in education, and part of that is submitting proof of how they had the human agency piece in the prompts and in what they created. What they're submitting is like their evidence of using AI.
So I'm more interested in the output and verifying the output, but that's good. I think that's an area where even adults who use AI, they're just accepting the output. I would urge you to think about that additionally. Sorry, I'm interrupting your presentation, but that is to me the most alarming part, and I know it was one of the questions.
And that would be like similar to one of the pieces with the fourth grade chatbot is the research assistant helping to find credible resources on the internet and making sure the students know where that information's coming from. So some of that is built in. I would say it's not perfect in every case. It's definitely, AI is, ever evolving, and it's coming very, very fast. We're trying to keep up, but also be very thoughtful in how we're pushing it out. So that's a great point that I think that we definitely need to put some focus on.
Could you just, I feel like I attacked you on the citing AI. Could you just explain that statement?
Sure. So if I don't know what that was. Yeah. Sure. So an example would be like if a student used AI to help them outline a paper that they wrote. They would have to cite, I used ChatGPT or Gemini or Microsoft Copilot to help me outline this paper and reveal their transparency. And in the student guidelines, we even have lots of different examples for any subject area and sample paragraphs of how they would, first of all, cite it, and then how they would explain their transparency on exactly how they used it to support them in their work.
So it sounds like not citing AI as a source, citing AI as a tool.
Yes.
So as a process support, not as a
Correct.
input support.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, just follow up with what she says, in line of some of the AI make mistakes and AI is still developing. So how are you choosing the right software that you buy, you purchase it from them? Which one's more correct and more kind of in line with your, is there AI for education? That's where you buy it?
So the only two apps that we have purchased are Magic School, which was this one that I showed, and then Brisk Teaching. We are definitely slow on the purchasing of AI programs. These two are vetted. They're approved by the state of Ohio. They both have very in-depth privacy policies. But of course, part of the student guidelines and teacher guidelines is the misinformation and the ethics piece of it. So we are teaching our students and our teachers to check for those things.
Do the kids have access at home?
They do. They do have access. They do have access at home to these different applications. I would say the Magic School one, the teacher has to turn the room on or turn it off. And then Brisk, the teacher has to push out a specific assignment. So it's not like something that's completely open. They can go on it whenever they want, unless the teacher keeps the Magic School room turned on. And again, it is very safe. It will never let them talk about something inappropriate. It always redirects them back to the task that the teacher built it for. Good question. Sorry.
The way you describe that safety, on the one hand, yes, absolutely, there are real threats, and I appreciate that the district is trying to protect our students from them. A different sort of safety is one of the things that worries me most. And I'm speaking as a college professor, so I run seminars and I see students struggling with discussions. In particular, what my students are struggling with more than they used to is the idea that they need to already know before they speak. They're very, very nervous about trying out untested thoughts in a room in real time with human beings. Mm-hmm. I think that the tool that you're describing is the sort of thing that builds that nervousness. And so I think it is undercutting skills that are increasingly essential. I have so many thoughts. Most of what you're saying, I see where you're coming from, and also it makes me want to scream. I'm going to give the mic back.
Great question, and I appreciate that question. I would say that we are definitely balancing the use of AI with other methods of instruction. Classroom discussion has not gone away. Those are not things that we have just done away with. AI is not used nearly close to every single day in a classroom. So I do want to assure you that this is not something that's like taking over everything that we are doing. We do need to prepare our students, and that's a big piece. We don't want them to become part of that divide that we are starting to see. It doesn't look like it's going away, AI, anytime soon. They are going to be expected to use a lot of these skills. A lot of jobs are already requiring it. So we also want to make sure that they're aware and responsible, effective users, and we do have to start that early. I do want to talk about some of the safeguards, and then hopefully we'll still have time to get some of your feedback, because I really do think that that's a really important piece of tonight and why we were so excited to have you here. We are still pushing the power of the student voice, teachers knowing their students' unique writing style, vocabulary, perspective, the authentication over process. So again, assessing that journey along the way over just that final destination, that final essay, that final project. Using oral defense and reflection in class, giving students an opportunity to explain how they used AI to assist their work. Keeping in mind that human-centric grading, so prioritizing student feedback, critical analysis, and personal voice within assignments. There's a shift on how we are assessing students. We even did some professional learning back in November on assessment in the age of AI and how a lot of our practices really need to shift to fit that. And then finally, detection as a conversation starter. We do have a couple tools at the high school, specifically GPT-0, which is like an AI detection tool. And then we also have revision history. These are not fully reliable tools, and we know that. That is why they're only used as a secondary check to help begin conversation around integrity of academic work. It is not used as a gotcha. You used AI to do all of your work for you, you get an F. That is not what it's used for. All right, so what do we think?
We certainly have, I know there may be more questions out there, and we wanted your questions and your feedback. I anticipate we'll probably go a little beyond 7. But we did want to give you a chance that if you are going to depart around 7, that we still hear from you a little bit. And so this was one strategy that we were going to try to collect some of your ideas from. You want to explain it, and
Sure.
I'll get some paper out there?
Yep. So this is another feedback activity that we're going to do in our table, so you can stay where you're at. Each of you are going to get a large poster paper on your table. You do have a small stack of Post-its on your table as well. We would like you to use your Post-its and quietly jot a few different things. We're going to place our North Post-it. What do you think we need to know as a district moving forward? What do you think we need to know as a district moving forward? East, something you're excited about, if you have anything that you're excited about. West, what's worrisome. And then South, any suggestions that you have. As a team, you're going to share and place your Post-its on the large paper, and then we're going to put them up so that you can gallery walk towards the end as we're closing up. But this is really our opportunity to get your feedback, so please be honest. Please write down what you're thinking.
And I would just say we did a very similar approach with our students, and this is what has helped to inform some next steps for us. So we thought we've heard from our students. We'd love to hear from you as well. Okay, now not too many worries. Just at least one S or E, I guess. Okay. Yeah, right. Actually,
I do want to be aware of the time. If you can stick around for a few more minutes and continue giving feedback, this is really what we are excited about, and we appreciate your feedback. So feel free to keep writing. Right. Over the next few minutes, if you think of anything else that you want to jot down, please feel free. We do want to discuss just a few of the next steps that we have here as a district. And of course, we're going to take all of this feedback into account and continue making changes. Again, we do have that AI review committee that consists of a lot of different stakeholders within the district that will continue looking at our policy and our guidelines for both students and teachers. So some of the things that we know that we have to do next, that we are actively working on, are consistent expectations across classrooms. It can look different depending on what classroom your student is in. Professional learning for both teachers, and we know students are wanting more of it. Evaluation of current tools and resources. Again, this is something that we revisit on a yearly basis. We are consistently reviewing all of our, not only our AI tools, just our tech tools in general that we are subscribed to make sure that they are effective for learning and teaching, safe. And then finally, refining our philosophy of grading and assessment in the age of AI. This is a big one, and I think that this will never end. I think that grading and addressing mastery of learning for students is going to be on a it'll be changing forever. So that's something that we continue to look at. At this point, if you have to go, that's fine. If you want to stick around and have questions, we are more than happy to stay for a little bit and answer any burning questions that you still have. I can't promise that I can give you an answer, but we will try.
Right. How many of you are walking away with some new questions this evening? How many of you are walking away with something that hopefully you're excited about as we think about what the future of AI looks like in our learning spaces? Maybe. I know I mentioned this at the beginning. I'm David Glass. I'm the superintendent. This is the first of a few community engagement sessions around topics that are real and relevant to our learning classrooms. As part of what we're calling the Superintendent Series. The next one I encourage everybody to come to is February 18th. And there are postcards over by the door if you want to get more. A favor that I have to ask of you is to go and tell your friends and neighbors and other associates about this session, whether it's to encourage people to come to future superintendent series or also to encourage people to learn more about generative AI and how it is changing the world that we live and learn in, we really want to encourage people to be engaged in that conversation, because your thoughts, your feedback and your experience is really valuable as we think about what the future of generative AI in the classroom looks like. I do want to give a big thank you again to Dr. Priestley for putting together this session, for leading it, and also for continuing to help us think about how to appropriately use generative AI in the classroom. I also didn't introduce Dr. John Moore before, our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I know we have two board members here, Board President Doug Wang and our Board Vice President Laura Cover, so thank you very much for being here. We are going to be posting this online for people to watch it and continue to learn from it. And if you have any questions, we'll stick around for a little bit now so you can come up. But also feel free, Dr. Priestley's email is here. You can also always get in touch with me as well. Thank you again for spending your evening here with us. Look forward to continuing this conversation. Have a great evening, everybody.